Welcome to the video demo series for Configure.IT. Unleash the hassle-free way to build bug-free mobile apps in the quickest possible turnaround time. So in this video, I want to go ahead and teach you how to configure the calendar view. So I've gone ahead and added a new page, and we're going to come over to our control list, and we're going to type in calendar, and we're going to just drag over the calendar view. So the calendar view has quite a few design configurations, and I'd like to walk through that before we get into any additional configurations. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to this section right here, and we're going to walk through each one of these configurations. The first one is the cell text color. So this will be the color for the dates that are shown in the calendar. So we'll go ahead and choose, let's see, a blue. And the normal cell border color, this will be the border color of an unchosen cell, so we'll choose a green. Now once a cell is selected, what color do you want the text to be? So in this case we're going to choose white. And what would you like the background color for a selected cell? And we'll come over here and let's choose a pink. And what would you like the selected cell border color to be? So we'll go ahead and choose that as white as well. So that's the border color of the selected cell. The current date text color, and that will be the color of the current date. And then what would you like the background color for the current date to be? And we'll choose a green, dark green. And then once the current date is selected, what would you like the background color to be? And we'll come over here and we'll choose red. Let's do a maroon. Now, if a cell is inactive, that means that it's not part of the current month. What would you like that color, the background color to be? And we'll choose a gray. And the day indicator, which will be the text at the top of the calendar. For example, we'll set when it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. What color of that text do you want it to be? And we're going to choose a dark blue. And the text for the weekend cells, we're going to choose this red. And then the highlighted cell text color and the background color, we'll go ahead and choose those. And the background color will be light green. And dot color and selected dot color, we're going to come back in just a bit and configure those. Now, if we wanted to go ahead and select a specific font for the cell text, then we'll choose that here, or otherwise it'll just use the system default. We can also change this, the font size here. And once the cell has been selected, we can choose a new font and a new cell, a new size if we wanted to select that here. And then the current date and the current size, we can select that here. And then if we want to change the header text font and the size, we can choose that here. And then the day label, which will be the Monday, Tuesday, we can choose the font and the text size here. So at this point, we've got all of the design configurations set. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in the app. Okay, so I've gone ahead and re-downloaded the project, and you can see all of our configurations right here. So let's take a look at them. So the first thing you notice is the cell text color is blue, and the normal cell border color is a light aqua. And once we select a cell, you can see that the text color is white with the background color being this pink. You can also notice that the border for the selected cell is also white. Now you can see that the current date, which is the 12th, is white with the green background. Now if I go ahead and touch the 12th, you can see that the background turns maroon. You can also see at the top, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that the indicator text on that is blue, and our weekend cell text is red. So now that we have our basic design set, why don't we go ahead and set some other configurations. So let's scroll up a bit, and we come to this section, and the first thing we come to is hide cell border. So if we don't want the calendar to have individual cells, then we can go ahead and check this box. And if we want to go ahead and enable circular cells, we'll go ahead and check that one. And now let's go ahead and take a look at it in the app. So we'll go ahead and refresh. And now you can see that our border is gone and we have circular cells, because you can see there the current date is circular, and we can also select a date, and you can see that it's circular as well. And we can also change the cell size of the circle so that it has more of a round and not so much of an oval. So if we come down here to cell size, and let's go ahead and type in 30, and let's go ahead and refresh the app. So now you can see that our cells are a little bit more round and not so oval. Now, if we go ahead and scroll to the next month, you can see that the size of the calendar changes. Now, if we didn't want that to happen, there's an easy setting. We can come over here and we can enable static height. And now let's go ahead and take a look again. So we'll refresh. And if we scroll to January, you can see that the size of our calendar doesn't change. Now, the next setting is enable events. And what this does is this will allow the calendar to sync with the default calendar in the phone. So if we go ahead and check enable events, now that we have events enabled, we want to have some way to show that a date has an event. So what we want to do is go ahead and type in dots, and we can configure dots here. And what this does is for each event that you have for a specific date, it will put one dot underneath that date. Now, if you have 8 events up for a date, you're not going to be able to have 8 dots. So what this maximum number of dots will do is it will allow you to set a maximum number. So in this case, it'll be 4. So if you have 8 events, it'll only have 4 dots. Dot color, we'll go ahead and choose red. And the selected dot color, so once that date is selected, what color do you want the dot to be? And we're going to choose white because we have a background color for selected dates. And we'll select OK. Now let's go ahead and take a look at it in the app. We'll click refresh. So the first time you're going to do this, you're going to need to provide access to your calendar. So we'll click OK. And there you go. Now you can see there, for example, on the 1st and the 22nd, there is a dot on my calendar. If we go and take a look at January, you can see that there's one on the 4th, the 7th, the 10th, and the 31st. Now, if there were multiple events, you would see multiple dots up to 4 dots. So we always get questions on, can you pull dates from an API that are stored in a database, for example, an event database, and show which dates have events? And you absolutely can do that. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and create an API. And I've already gone ahead and done that. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So here's the API that I've created. It's just a simple API that's going to pull events from a MySQL database. And we'll go ahead and click debug to take a look at what we're going to be getting. And so here's what we have. So we have some events from the Atlanta area. So we have the ballet at the Fox Theater, a lantern festival at Olympic Park, something Deck the Hall at the College Hall of Fame, and so forth and so on. So we've got some events here. So why don't we go ahead and get these in the app? So we'll close that and come back to our front end. And the first thing we want to do is go ahead and add that data source. So we'll click Add Data Source. And we're just going to scroll down to the bottom, Get Events, Execute, and Save. Okay, then we can close the Data Sources window. So now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and fire this API when the calendar is loaded. So we'll click on Actions, Load. And we're going to trigger an API call and select our Get Events API. Click Save. So now we need to tell the calendar where the date for each event is. And we're going to scroll down to Events Data Source Key. And we're going to choose the date, which is this DD date. Now to make this happen, we have to have this Enable Events checked. Now by default, if there's no API that is called for this actions, then it will actually pull events from our calendar. But if it's actually pulling an API, it will not pull events from the calendar, and it will pull events from the API that we've selected. Now another thing to point out here is this key name to cell color. For example, if you wanted to assign a specific color to each event, you could assign that color right here by sending a hex code with each event, and then each event would have its own individual color. Now the next thing we need to do to get the dates to show up in the app is we actually have to set this date display format. And what this date display format says is what is the format of the date that we're going to be receiving so that the calendar view knows which date to use. And the way we do that is we'll come over here and we'll fire this API again. We'll take a look at the format. So here's the format. It's year, month, and date. So this is the default format for all dates within the Configure.IT platform. It's always going to be year, month, date. So now we can close this and we can come back to our front end. And so the way we do this is put in 4 lowercase y's, a dash, 2 capital M's, and another dash and 2 lowercase d's. Now you have to use the capital M's because in this format, capital M is for months. If you did lowercase m's, you would actually be saying minutes. Now, selected date format is the format of the date that you will be sending out once a date is selected. So if you were using the date in another API call, or if you were doing it in an alert view, what format would you like to send it out? So that would go here. Now, if it's blank, you will by default send it in the date display format. So the month header text format is to change the format of the header text. So for example, instead of December 2016, we wanted 2016 December. We could do that here by putting in 4 lowercase y's and 3 uppercase m's. So now that we have that configured and our data source configured, why don't we go ahead and take a look at it in the app. So we'll go ahead and refresh. So you can see our additional dates now, and you can see the header format at the top is changed. Now you see it's been abbreviated DEC. If we wanted the full December, then we would just do 4 M's instead of 3 M's. Now the next thing we want to take a look at is display day label text in capitals. So if we go ahead and choose this one and refresh, now you can see that our days are actually all capitalized. Now the last thing to talk about is the calendar header view ID. We had a lot of requests on how to change, for example, the background color of the header or any other aspects of the header, and those can't be directly configured within the calendar view, but you can create your own calendar header and then reference that header right here. So why don't we go ahead and do that right now. Now the first thing we want to do is go ahead and pull over an additional view. So we'll type in view, and we want to pull over a view, and we'll just drag it. Now we just need to adjust the size, and the view can be really any size you want. So we'll make it 320 by 70. So the next thing we need to do is add a label to display the month and year. So we'll pull a label over and drag it and drop it inside the view. And so we'll just adjust the size here. Now, one thing you want to make sure is that you leave enough room at the bottom to display the months. And so we'll just center that view. And the next thing is to add a navigation. So we'll type in navigation indicator button. So we want to add 2 buttons. So now let's go ahead and configure these navigation buttons. Now you can use these buttons just like any other button. So if you wanted, if you have specific images that you want to use for the arrows, certainly you can do that. But in this case, we're just going to use text. So the normal title, we're just going to put an arrow, and then the font size, we're going to go ahead and do, let's say 30. Now for this arrow here that is right, it's going to be moving things forward. So there's actually a custom setting for that. So we'll type in forward and navigation button forward. We'll go ahead and select that. Now for this button over here, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So title, we'll do a back arrow, and the font, we'll type in 30. Now for the label, we want to go ahead and center the label text up. And text alignment, we're going to do center. Now the next thing we need to do on this review is to go ahead and change some of the advanced properties, because what we don't want it to do is we don't want it to expand vertically, so we'll go ahead and turn those off. We'll click save. And then the last thing is we need to go back to these navigation buttons and assign the object parent ID to the calendar view. We'll click save. And then we'll do it for the next one. And what this does is this tells us when these buttons are selected that they actually belong to the calendar view and should be changing the calendar view. Click save. Now that we have the header view configured, let's go ahead and assign it to the calendar view. So we'll click on calendar view, and now we'll scroll down, and then we'll come to this section right here, calendar header view ID. We'll go ahead and select object, and we're going to choose the view 1, which is our calendar header. And then the next thing is month year displaying label. Where do you want the month and the year displayed? So we'll select object, we'll click label 1, click save, and then we'll come up here to month year header text format and just go ahead and remove that so we get the default format. Now that we have our header view configured, let's go ahead and take a look at it in the app. And now we can move back and forth using our custom header. Now there's another setting that we haven't discussed yet, and that's this one right here, this header offset from calendar. And basically what this does is this will allow you to adjust the header off of the calendar. So for example, we'll type in 10, and what this will move the header 10 pixels off from the calendar. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll click on refresh. So you can see there that the dates were moved 10 pixels down from where the day of the week is. So the last thing we want to talk about is some of the actions. So the date selected action is what you would use when you wanted to perform an action once a user selects a date. So one of our most popular requests is, for example, to populate a table of events once a user selects a date. And that would be right here, and all you would do is you would create a new API that would go and query a table of events and just pass that event to the API where it would search that date and pull off all the events. So the key to doing that is to make sure that this selected date format is the same format that you're using in your query. And that's all you have to do. That's how you configure a calendar view. Want to learn more? Visit our Help Center for additional tutorials, our Support Center, and our online community, where our support team will assist you. Keep configuring.